The Iran war has got airlines and governments worried about jet fuel and the prospect of shortages. The UK government this weekend has given airlines permission to cancel flights on some routes without facing penalties if they need to save fuel. And that raises the obvious question, is that going to affect summer holidays? We've got some new data that starts to help us answer that question. Let's start at the beginning. The first thing to say is that jet fuel is a real problem. This is why the price has gone up relatively faster and further than any oil product since the Strait of Hormuz was blocked. It spiked immediately after the war began. It's come down a bit. It's still more than double practically where it was, $14,000 a tonne, and that's because supply has been profoundly interrupted. Production is around 500,000 barrels a day short of global demand because the Gulf is effectively closed. Kuwait, Saudi, major exporters, and China has imposed an export ban, and that's started to impact flight scheduling. In response, airlines are cutting flights, optimising their schedules, getting rid of non-profitable routes and thinning out schedules, the aim being to try and fly the same number of passengers on fewer flights. We've got some new data that tells us what's happened over 11 days in April. These are flights scheduled for May. 13,000 flights, more than, have been cancelled for May around the world. That's nearly 2 million seats in total. Now, that sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but it's a relatively small amount of the global total. Barely 1.5% for both flights and seats. If it tells us anything, it tells us we really do fly a very great deal. Now, the data is from analyst Cirium, and we've broken it down, analysed it to try and see how it breaks down. First, by airports. We've looked at the largest cuts by airport, the most changes, and they largely follow the size of airports around the world. In 4% of flights, the red lines, and 2% in blue there. Atlanta, Hartsfield-Jackson, that's the world's busiest airport by passenger numbers. Then Beijing, then some big US airports, until we get down. The first European airport here is Heathrow. Around 1% of flights, 0.5% of seats have been cut. Now, we've had a look at this again by UK domestic airports. It tells us something quite interesting about what's going on. Look at the most affected here. Nearly 20% of flights at Birmingham Airport affected, more than 10% of seats. Next is London City, Newcastle and Manchester, Stansted and Gatwick. That tells us that point-to-point airports, precisely the ones that scheduled holiday and package flights run from, are the most affected here. And that's why there's so much concern about whether your holiday will be affected. Now, the Transport Secretary says there is not currently disruption to jet fuel supplies, but the government plainly is planning for exactly that. And for now, as long as airlines are offering flights, you should take that in good faith and book them. The price has not soared, which suggests the industry thinks this is going to be sorted. But the longer the blockade of the Gulf goes on, the greater the chance your flight could be affected.